Welcome back, everyone. Nice to see you here again, or maybe you've also been on since the keynote speech of Herbert Wigwe this morning. We are very excited to give you a really, really quick stint into something that we've been working on ahead of this conference to really, really unpack what global opportunities African businesses can actually look at. We heard from Aliko Dangote yesterday that there is a lot of opportunity to scale to a multi-billion-dollar business without even leaving the continent. But he also said that it's important we think about diversification and making sure that we have our legs across the world to make sure that we are building global businesses. And at AFG, we asked ourselves the question, what global opportunities could Africa or an African company actually look at? I mean, Germany is famous for automotive. Are we going to become the next big automotive manufacturers? I don't know. But there needs to be a little bit more conversation about what are the extra opportunities that African companies can look at where we can really become the best in class globally. And I am very excited to introduce my guests. My guest to my left is Regine Ankoma-Bempon. Regine, welcome.
Thank you, Yasmin.
Regine, we are colleagues, we work together, so I know you very well. But I think it would be nice if you can briefly introduce yourself and tell us what you do.
Sure. So, as Yasmin said, I'm Regine Ankoma-Bempon, and I work at AFG as a practice manager. So what that means is that I support our clients in terms of their impact and their growth, and I also support the business in terms of its thought leadership as AFG, making sure that we're writing about what's important and we're communicating through reports and critical research to our clients and our audience about things that we're learning as we're working in the African business landscape.
Thanks, Regine, and welcome. It's nice to have you here. Normally, I see you in the office or on a Zoom call, thanks to COVID.
I know.
Then we have social distancing, so that's good. But yeah, Regine, you have been spearheading this effort that I just mentioned. We wanted to find out what are the global opportunities where Africa could actually put itself on the map as the industry leader. So just like, as I said, certain continents are industry leaders for specific things. South Korea is an industry leader for automotive and electronics. What could Africa be an industry leader for? And I'm really curious to hear what you did in order to tackle this question. What was the approach?
So for us, like most AFG projects that we work on, we started with a project team. And the project team consisted of our two partners, yourself and Rashida, and an analyst from our Next Gen program that was just discussed by Rashida and Justice, and myself. So what we were interested in doing is to identify the areas, particular areas of opportunity. So we started by looking at 11 broad areas of interest. So we looked at agriculture, we looked at manufacturing, we looked at construction, amongst a host of other sectors or industries, as we'll call them. And then we dived down deeper into looking at 57 specific subsectors within those 11 industries so that we could find the particular areas where there are pockets of opportunity for Africa. Once we were able to identify the 57 subsectors that we're interested in, we then developed a 2x2 matrix that was based on global growth rates and the market sizes for these opportunities. So as we looked at that, we were able to identify 6 main areas of interest for Africa in terms of which specific subsectors we could actually develop businesses from that have global opportunity. And then we created a fun 5-minute video so that this information is easily digestible for our audience.
And did you also look at what of the opportunities that we have globally right now would be particularly accessible or feasible for African players in terms of what resources we have, etc.?
Exactly. So, I mean, definitely beyond looking at global market size and beyond looking at global market size and the growth trends in those specific industries, we also had to consider factors like labor and non-labor resources that could either be barriers to entry for us into certain sectors or certain areas. And so we considered tactfully where we have skilled labor resources now, opportunities to upskill labor to also meet those areas and to be able to develop concrete businesses. So not just looking at market size and growth trends, we also took into consideration other factors that are critical for this kind of thinking.
Interesting. Well, you said there's a video. I think it's ready to be shown. This is the first time we're showing this to anybody. So whoever joined the session is now part of a historical moment, so to say. No, but I think it's really exciting to show this to our audience and also see what the feedback is. So let's listen and watch the video.
No African company has ever been listed in the global Fortune 500. Comparatively, the smallest company in the global Fortune 500 reports annual revenues of $25 billion, which is 2 times larger than most of Africa's biggest corporations' turnover today. Africa's GDP has grown at an average of 4% since 2000. However, at 2.6 trillion, the GDP of our entire continent is still smaller than that of some advanced economies. It is hence crucial that African companies consider global market opportunity to truly scale into large corporations that can cross the $25 billion revenue mark. We asked, what sectors hold the greatest promise for African corporations to become global champions? We started by looking at 57 sectors to understand what business sectors in the world have a compelling market size and growth rate. We identified 6 sectors where African businesses have an opportunity to shine in terms of availability of the right human capital and non-labor resources on our continent. One of the biggest drivers of growth in the multi-billion-dollar food market is the rise of the health-conscious consumer. This presents a great opportunity given Africa's vast arable lands. For example, corporations can strategically market and export sorghum. In 2018, its total trade value exceeded $1 billion. The renewable energy market is worth $257 billion and is growing at 4% annually. A net total of 734 gigawatts of solar power will be added worldwide by the end of 2029. Africa is one of the sunniest continents in the world, as 85% of African land receives more than 2,000 kilowatt hours of solar energy per square meter per year. This presents an opportunity for Africa to leverage on its climate to produce and export solar energy to the rest of the world. The demand for ecotourism is rising, with over 55% of global travelers indicating their preference to sustainable travel choices. Despite the challenges that COVID-19 has ravaged on the travel industry, we believe that in the long run, Africa can leverage on its position as one of the early leaders of ecotourism to become a hub for sustainable tourism. For example, Botswana's Green Safaris has created over 70,000 direct and indirect jobs in the country. In the 2 decades since 1990, Sub-Saharan Africa has also succeeded in attracting 5 times more visitors than they did in the 1990s. As businesses become more open to outsourcing, Africa can export its dynamic human resource. Fulfilling 1% of the global demand of staffing and business process outsourcing could create about 120,000 jobs in Africa. Specifically, data services could be interesting for Africa because of its high growth rate and the upskilling opportunity it offers for young African workers. The chemical industry has a global market size of $2 trillion, growing at 11% per annum. As demand for food rises, so does demand for agrochemicals that boost agricultural productivity. African companies can capitalize on Africa's vast reserves of mineral and gas resources needed to produce fertilizers such as urea for export and domestic use. Finally, there is an unprecedented growth in the percentage of aging population throughout the world, particularly in growing economies such as Europe, Japan, and China. There were 703 million persons aged 65 years or over in the world in 2019, and this is projected to double to 1.5 billion in 2050. As more than 70% of elders in the US have smartphones, there's an opportunity to create a remote care platform through which African caretakers can partake in this $2,000 billion industry, providing virtual assistance to elderly patients. AFG was founded to become a platform for the elevation of African companies and people into global champions. Are you ready to build with us?
Wow. So, all right, I didn't know that I'm live, but that's fine. I think that the audience has been able to see the video. I hope that everything worked out technically. But it's a short recap, I think, of the research you have been doing with the team. And of course, it would now be interesting to understand a little bit what do you think this research can be used for?
I definitely think that this research is useful first for African businesses. There are businesses that are trying to understand where the opportunity areas lie for them in terms of looking at diversification, in terms of trying to enter a new market. And so being able to understand that these are some of the opportunities that we've been able to identify based on our research could make it important for them to capitalize on this research. I also think that investors could find this video interesting because this video would allow them to understand where there are opportunities in Africa. So if they're looking out to invest in certain businesses, they focus or target these areas or businesses that are operating in these areas specifically.
Got it. So the 6 sectors that were shown in the video were elderly care services, superfoods, ecotourism, agricultural inputs, so chemicals. Yes. Then we also had, what else was there?
So we have superfoods, we have ecotourism, we have chemicals in agricultural industry, we have elder care services, we have renewable energy. And what's the last one? Why?
Well, maybe you have to watch the video again.
Exactly.
I know it's been a long piece of work, but what do you think is the result of the COVID-19 crisis when it comes to these opportunities? I mean, if some people see that we are saying, oh, we should look into ecotourism, where we can see how airlines are breaking down one after the other right now, what would you say to that?
I mean, I think for something like ecotourism, there's also a largely untapped area in terms of domestic potential. Mm-hmm. Most people in Africa, or most people, when you live in a certain area, you find less time to actually visit the attractions within that area because you're so used to them and you're not that interested as tourists would be as they come in. So definitely some of these industries that we've noted down are largely affected by the COVID-19 crisis at the moment. Mm-hmm. But there are certain industries that have the potential within the next couple of years to be able to be revived and to actually become stronger following the end of the COVID crisis.
Right, so I guess it's also about long-term thinking.
Exactly.
And the last one, I just remembered. For the audience, we couldn't fully view the video, so pardon us for this. But I think the last sector was BPO staffing.
Exactly.
So there it says 120,000 jobs if we just capture 1% of the market. I think that's very interesting because job creation is such an important focus in a lot of conversation around Africa's development right now. But then there are also places such as India that are already owning that sector a lot. Where Definitely. Do you see can Africa come in here from the research your team has done?
So in terms of business process outsourcing, I think there are different sectors that we could look at, subdivisions of that we could look at. And we thought data services was particularly interesting for Africa because of the high growth trend that market experiences. And then also back to the point you're making about COVID-19, looking at remote working opportunities such as this enables us to leapfrog some of the challenges that we're facing right now with COVID-19. So I think we have some opportunity or some leeway to be able to actually implement some of these opportunities that we've identified.
Okay, great. So thank you, Regine. Thanks for introducing us to this research and the video. I hope some of our colleagues in the audience are excited about some of the opportunities. I think no matter what sector you're in, these opportunities can be relevant, be it because you're thinking about what next business to build, what next business to invest in, what kind of diversification pathways to take. So it's definitely something that we hope will add a lot of value to from what we've heard so far from speakers, should be on the agenda for anyone right now, which is rethinking and rebuilding because of the current pandemic we find ourselves in. So thank you, Regine, for joining me here.
Yasmin.
And I think now we have a quick break before we go into the next program point, which will be a super exciting panel discussion that is going to go a little bit deeper on the question, why should I actually scale as an African business? Once you have been doing well with a couple of millions of dollars in revenue, you might as well get comfortable. So why really bother to go through all this pain of scaling once you have gotten to a certain level? And we have 3 speakers that have very different perspectives on this. So I think it's going to be super exciting. It's going to be moderated by one of our good friends from CDC Group. And I think that it will be a super insightful discussion. So stay tuned. We start at 3 p.m. UK time. See you shortly.